From the Kansas City Sports Update Studio, this is the Richard Smith Show, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs, brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Don't forget to check out our Royals Update podcast with Kevin Monk. Check us out on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Spreaker Player FM, YouTube, and all third-party applications. Also check us out on all major social media platforms. And if you can't find us there, just Google The Richard Smith Show and Kansas City Chiefs, and I promise you will find it. Let's talk Chiefs. How are we doing, Chiefs Kingdom? It is Thursday, June 6th, and we are here to talk Chiefs. We've got some Chiefs news tonight, including Jordy Nelson talking about possibly joining the Chiefs with his departure from Oakland and living in Kansas. And tonight with me, I have Kris Chavez, to our senior NFL analyst, to break down everything this Kansas City Chiefs. How are we doing tonight, Kris?
I'm doing fantastic. And yourself?
I couldn't be better, Kris. I couldn't be better. So to start things off tonight, Kris, let's talk about Jordy Nelson. This will be Jordy's 11th year in the league if he was to hop on board here with KC. From 2013 to 2016 was probably Jordy Nelson's best run, where he accumulated 4,090 yards receiving on 180 receptions, with multiple touchdowns. I didn't even see that, but I'm thinking we're here in like 30s or 40 touchdowns. But since 2016, Jordy Nelson's production has fallen off quite substantially. Where do you think the Kansas City Chiefs are with Jordy Nelson, and do you think that he might be a good acquisition for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Jordy Nelson is kind of like one of those high school kids who wants to go to the prom and is asking everybody at school, but nobody wants to take him. Since his injury with the Packers, it's pretty much all been downhill ever since. He's a very smart wide receiver, extremely intelligent as far as finding the holes in the defense, but his physical abilities have just really regressed ever since the injury. I think him wanting to play for Kansas City is much more one-sided than I think the media is really reporting. In the article that I read, when his season was over with Oakland, Kansas City gave him a call, just to kind of see where things were at, kind of feeling things out, but it never really progressed beyond that. And so I think while he knows that they're quote-unquote both interest, I don't think that the interest is still there, especially given all of the talent that we brought in this offseason.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like the Jordy Nelson request, as what I look at this as a request to the Kansas City Chiefs more than an offer extended out to the Kansas City Chiefs. Jordy Nelson, you're a little too late. You should have contacted us before the draft when we were really reaching out for receivers. I feel like that you're a Julian Edelman type of receiver, and obviously Tom Brady holds on to Julian Edelman for a reason. He's a very smart receiver. He finds ways to get open, and in a Kansas City Chiefs offense, I feel like Jordy Nelson possibly could have thrived, but it was a little too late for Jordy. I feel like if he would have been any production for the Kansas City Chiefs at all, it would have been in his departure from Green Bay before he went to Oakland. So me personally, if it's not a minimum deal, I pass on Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. It has to be a minimum contract, 1-year deal, and I think the highest that he'd probably climb on our depth chart, barring major significant injuries, would be as a slot receiver. That's pretty much the only value that I see from him there. And although the competition for that slot receiver is still kind of open, then I wouldn't want to harm the progression of any of our other receivers that we see more value in the long-term view.
Yes, and I agree with you on that one. I would hate to cut short any progression from these young receivers to bring in essentially 34-year-old Jordy Nelson, who is on the end of his career. And let's face it, in Chiefs Kingdom, we look to get younger, and that's basically where the bottom line is. And it doesn't seem like Jordy Nelson is quite a fit for Kansas City.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that.
So let's move on here. We touched base with Jordy Nelson, and that's, our big topic tonight is the wide receiver group outside of the season review, which I've touched base on, in the last 2 episodes, which is also brought to you by Arrowhead Update. So let's touch base on this wide receiving group. Let's be honest, as far as the starting rotation is concerned, and I'm talking rotation, this isn't just our starters. Let's look at D-Rob, Hill, Hartman, Watkins, and these undrafted free agents or undrafted rookies and also these drafted rookies. Where are we standing? I noticed that you're really big on Jamal Custis, 6'4" with a 4.5 40. What do you feel about the Chiefs' receiving core? Where are we at?
So overall, looking at the entire group, we have a lot of talent at our wide receiver position. And looking back at the last 6 years since Andy Reid has been our head coach, we've had we've kept 6 wide receivers on the roster every single year. The only time that we didn't start with 6 was back in 2014 because Bo was suspended for a game, but the second game he came back and that made it 6, and we carried 6 the rest of the season. The only 2 locks for our roster this year are going to be Sammy Watkins and McCole Hardman, and that's just assuming that the Hill situation is still undefined at this moment. So you're looking at Demarcus Robinson, Dieter, Grayson, Kemp, Pringle, Custis, Felton Davis, Rashard Davis, and Cody Thompson as potential fill-ins from the 3 slot down. So you really are looking at taking on 4 guys from this group to start the season, assuming that Hill has at least a minimum of a 1-game suspension.
Which I look for Hill to get some type of suspension here, but with D-Rob potentially being the slot receiver, if we're not seeing any progression in the Hill case, let's say D-Rob is our slot receiver and we have Hartman on the outside and Watkins on the other side. Do you feel like with the talent that we have minus Hill, is it a Super Bowl caliber receiving core?
I would definitely say so. D-Rob has definitely shown flashes over the last 3 years that he can make plays. I would like to see him make them more consistently. Hardman, it depends on his progression, but he's been coming in early to every single OTA, working on his route tree. He's really trying to be himself this year, as opposed to what a lot of people are saying of, oh, he's just another Hill. He's a Chad Johnson. He's this, he's that. He's trying to be himself. And I think that's really grown up of him at this early in his stage of his career for him to be saying and to have that mindset. And I think that really the push over the Hill as far as the Super Bowl caliber wide receiving group is Watkins. He really needs to take a couple steps forward. First off, in his health, for him to be able to actually finish an entire 16-game season. And you're going to be looking at 19 games if you're talking Super Bowl. But he also wants to be a leader this year and kind of show all the young guys, this is what it takes for them to be successful. And finishing routes, how to take care of themselves on the field, off the field, and Patrick Mahomes called him out for his lack of justice.
You're breaking up. Hey, you're breaking up a little bit. Will you repeat the last sentence you said?
Oh, sorry. So Patrick Mahomes called him out for his lack of effort and OTAs doing wide receiver sprints, and Watkins was coming back or finishing middle of the pack, if not at the back end of it. But he's got 4.43 speed, and so Mahomes called him out on it. And in the very next practice, Watkins was beating everybody. And as we've kind of talked about in the past, Watkins has had that tendency to not finish plays, to not finish or to not give out full-out effort. But because Mahomes called it out on it, and I think because of that change in philosophy as far as his leadership goes, I think that we're starting to see him making that turn. And so hopefully that will continue. I mean, looking at what he did last year coming into Kansas City for the first year, he didn't know a route tree. When he was with the Rams in Buffalo, all they ever had him do was just run a go route. And that was it. And so he never had to learn how to run all the other routes. He came in, realized that in this offense, he needs to be able to do that. And so he was coming in early, he was staying late and working on those routes, making sure that he was running them correctly. And then this offseason, he's changed his behaviors off the field as far as his amount of sleep, what he's eating. And he says that he feels so much better. He feels like a brand new wide receiver who's just now coming into the league for the first time. And hearing that energy from him really does excite me.
It excites me too because I haven't really heard any type of energy or statements or any type of Sammy Watkins being vocal throughout his entire career. So now that he is in Kansas City vocalizing the fact that this could potentially be the best career or best year of his career, and really honing in on the fact that he knows that this is his role and he's got to fill that role, I feel like that Sammy Watkins is really going to get over that hump as far as, you know, is he an impact receiver? Is he somebody who's going to be reliable through 16 seasons? I feel like the kid was able to slack off, you know, all the way through high school, college, and the NFL, and now he's got somebody, you know, on his back saying, look, like this looks, we know you're Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins has to produce or there will be no Sammy Watkins in Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing to also look at is when he was in Buffalo and at the time with the Rams, he wasn't with a Super Bowl contender. And so he didn't really have that push to be successful because, whatever I do, I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to collect a paycheck. But now that he's with this group, with this team, with the quarterback, like he sees, I could get a ring. We can get a ring. We can do this. And I think that has really helped to push him to look at things differently and change his mindset.
And look, I couldn't agree more with you, and I really hope that is the scenario from here on out. And I want to ask you, man, you know, we have McCole Hartman, and that's really made it so we have overlooked players like Jamal Custis and Byron Pringle. What do we have? Will those players make the depth chart for the Kansas City Chiefs with the depth that we do have in receiver? Because look, I'm going to be honest with you. The Chiefs Kingdom, we like to complain a lot because we've gone through a lot. But when you go through a lot and you start complaining a lot, you start to overlook a lot of the pieces that we have here, and you want to see more huge names come in. And I want to be honest with you, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs, you couldn't ask for any more huge names than we already have in the organization. So with that being said, the small names here, Byron Pringle, Jamal Custis, where are we at?
Okay, so what's going to lead me into that really quick is I think McCole Hartman's, a lot of the wide receivers, their biggest attribute and contribution to this team is going to come on special teams. And that's one thing that definitely got Hardman drafted. Dave Todd had commented that Hardman was very Devin Hester-ish, quote unquote.
Oh, I love it.
And a lot of people feel that his special teams ability is why the Chiefs drafted him and passed on DK Metcalf, who was later drafted by the Cleveland Browns. But then coming back to the smaller names, Byron Pringle, he and Kemp, both of them have been standouts in the past for their special teams play, for their play, or Pringle especially for his play in the preseason last year. And I think this year, I think Kemp's going to be having to get cut, as well as Dieter. Both of them seem to just they've missed their chance to really improve and show that they're going to be able to have a true impact in the passing game. Dieter is a huge friend to Mahomes, and they have a huge connection. But I don't think that that's going to be able to, quote unquote, save him from getting cut this season. Pringle's been having a phenomenal offseason. He's coming in. He's, as Reed said, he's plucking the ball out of the air as opposed to catching it off of his body, which, as any true fan knows, that's what how a wide receiver is supposed to catch the ball, is with their hands, not with their body.
Right.
And I really wish that Hill was in OTAs and make it back for preseason camp, because I want, more so than anything, I want to see him learn how to catch with his hands. And I think that would just set Hill to a whole other level in the passing game. Pringle's already doing that. And so I think that he's definitely going to make the team. And depending on how much he progresses and potentially how little Robinson progresses, I could see Pringle making a jump up to potentially making the slot receiver position. I could see him taking the wide receiver 3 for on our depth chart.
Right, and which would be, a great situation for the Kansas City Chiefs. And man, I gotta ask you, do you think Reed gave Mahomes a group of receivers and said, "Here, look, pick what you want. Take control here, and you tell me what you want and what best suits you"? Do you think that's a situation that's going on in Kansas City right now?
I think something very similar to that happened. I think he asked Mahomes, "What do you want in your wide receiver?" And Mahomes must have told him, "I want him tall and I want him fast." Because with the wide receiving group that we brought in, 8 of the 9 undrafted free agents wide receiver are between 6'2" and 6'5". And I mean, it's like, as everybody has always said, you can't teach speed. You also can't coach height. And so that's what we brought in. And several of these guys are extremely fast or quick. Looking at Jamal Custis, who you mentioned earlier, he's 6'5" and ran a 4.5 40.
Which is incredible.
That's a rare combination of size and speed.
Right, and it really, really is. And you have height and speed with somebody who has hands. That's a deadly combination, and I think that's a solidifying factor. And what we're truly looking at here, as far as depth is concerned, we know we have speed, we know we have versatility. Now we need a tall receiver with speed and versatility and hands who can really complement the outside speed and the interior leverage that we have on any defense. So with all of go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Another wide receiver who came in undrafted, who a lot of guys are really high on, is Cody Thompson. Of all the wide receivers in this year's draft, only 2 of them, Miles Boykin and Hunter Renfrow, have better 3-cone drill time than Cody Thompson. He ran a 6.87, and the others were 6.8 and 6.77. So Thompson is extremely agile and has really quick feet, which is going to really help out in this offense as well, because he's going to be able to make a lot of those quick cuts and get open and then find the holes against the defenses.
Right. Okay, so look, we're going to move on here. I want to ask you one question before we move on. Should we go after another weapon? And I'm kind of running low on time here, so keep this brief, Kris. Kris, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, man. You broke up. I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so I was saying I want to ask you one more question. We're kind of running out of time here about the wide receiving group. Did Reed give him a... Okay, should we go after another weapon? That's my biggest question. Should we go after another weapon right now, or are we good at wide receiver?
I think we're good at wide receiver. we've got a lot of talent here, and I think that some of these guys who end up getting cut are going to go to other teams. They're going to get picked up, and they're going to make significant contributions in their offenses. We're going to be cutting guys who, they could go to, let's say, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and they could potentially start for those guys. These guys are that good.
Fair enough. And I completely agree with you there. Like, we have a great wide receiving core, and I really feel like that we don't need to go after a huge weapon here. So we're going to move on to the Andy Reid coaching tree, and I got to keep this brief too. We really are running out of time here, but the Andy Reid coaching tree, Let's start with Brad Childers, and we're going to work our way down. Brad Childers, Vikings; John Harbaugh, Ravens; Steve Spagnuolo, Chiefs; Leslie Frazier, Vikings; Ron Rivera, Panthers; Pat Shurmur with the Giants; Todd Bowles with the Jets; Doug Peterson with the Eagles; Sean McDermott with the Bills; Matt Nagy with the Bears; and Mike Holmgren with the Packers. What a solid coaching tree just in the head coaching area. What do you say about the Andy Reid coaching tree? And is this guy not legendary or what?
No, absolutely, he's legendary. I think that when all is said and done, it's definitely going to be one of the deepest and most impactful coaching trees in the history of the NFL, at least up until this point in history.
And I couldn't argue with you more. Andy Reid is a staple and a legend in the NFL, and his coaching tree is branching out, and there's a reason for it. His schemes are just one of a kind, and these guys would be stupid not to take what they've learned from Andy Reid and branch that out into the NFL. So it shows that the success from Andy Reid is really, really shining throughout. And it's nice to see what a huge legend we do have on the Chiefs. And I think it's important that we emphasize on, just how much his legacy has impacted the NFL and the current NFL right now.
No, absolutely. And what he's done for the offensive side of the game has really started to revolutionize the league. And it was kind of hard to really identify it way back when he was in Philly. And I don't want to necessarily talk about what they were or weren't doing back then, but I think that they weren't 100% sold on his vision of an offense. And so he kind of had to fight that battle. But here in Kansas City, I think that getting his guys into position in the front office has really helped him to say, okay, this is what I want to see, and they're absolutely supporting him in getting that.
Right, and which is great for Andy Reid and Chiefs Kingdom. So with that being said, we know what Andy Reid brings to the table. My biggest question to you here for Andy Reid and Brett Veach, do we lock them both in long term? Is this just an Andy Reid thing? I've talked about this on multiple episodes, but I'd like to get a few answers from a few different analysts. So what's your take on Andy Reid and Brett Veach long term?
Andy Reid, absolutely sign him up, and I would go with a lifetime contract with him. As long as he wants to coach, you can do it in Kansas City, man. We've seen what he can do on the field, because with a head coach, it's a matter of, can you coach players up, and can you win games? On both of those aspects, you check it off. That's a yes, and it's a yes. He brings in tremendous coaching talent to coach up his players. So in that regard, sign him up. Reid, you can coach in Kansas City until the day you choose to die, man. That door's going to be open. On Brett Veach, while I love what he has done for us, I can't say yes yet, because although he and Reid both have been quote-unquote proven winners, with the GM you have to measure them differently than just wins and losses. With Veach, you have to look at the talent that they're bringing in, and can they bring in the right players? And right now, Veach has only had 2 drafts. And we've only seen one of those draft classes actually, quote-unquote, perform, which was last year. I want to give Veach another 2 to 3 years to see how that first class progresses, as well as to see who else he can bring in. With the last 2 draft classes, the talent that he has brought in has been tremendous. I'm really excited about his draft ability. But then also looking at how he has, quote-unquote, fixed our cap room problem that Dorsey had created with a lot of really bad contracts. It also has me really excited about the long term. And right now, like, if it was a matter of do or die, do I sign him up right now for another extension? Absolutely. But I want to be extremely critical, and I want to wait out this contract before I sign on to another long-term deal.
Which really we need to see what Brett Veach is made of, and I feel like that we're getting a dose of that here in the first couple of years. But you're right, and so is Ryan and Brent. We really need to see what value Veach brings to the table consistently before we sign him to a long contract. And I love the guy, don't get me wrong, but you're right, and so are they, and everybody else. We really just need to feel the man out. Andy Reid, yes, lifetime contract. Lock him in as long as he wants to be a Chief. Let's get that rolling. I love that thought process, and I feel like here in Chiefs Kingdom, we all feel the same as you. So moving on, we're going to get into the season preview here, and we are on week 3 with where are we at? The 49ers.
San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, the San Francisco 49ers, week 3 of the preseason. Their owner is Jed York. Their GM is John Lynch, who's under his 3rd year in his contract, and really I think it's time for John Lynch to show what he's made of. He does have a quarterback in Garoppolo. I do believe in Garoppolo, maybe not long term, but short term. Marquise Goodwin is a nice complementary receiver for Garoppolo, and then Ford and Bosa. I mean, they brought in some nice formidable names to kind of solidify their defense a little bit more. There's some building steps going on here in San Francisco. Do I see them as a contender against Kansas City? Absolutely not. I don't want to put them in that category, and won't put them in that category until they are winning their own division. So with that being said, we're going to see some more looks with Patrick Mahomes and our first string defense. We'll probably see more of Sammy Watkins and Travis Kelce on the field. And I would love to see a Tyreek Hill maybe nudge his way in there and get a few snaps if we can get him back in action. I'm not really sure what's going on with him, but all around with the 49ers, I don't see them pulling the trigger with Kansas City preseason, regular season. They're going to be sitting on the sidelines in the off season again. It's just a horrible time, to be a 49ers fan, and has been for at least a decade now.
Yeah, no, and the Niners are a very proud franchise. I mean, they have a lot of history there, and I mean, growing up, you had to have a lot of respect for them. And they've just gone year after year, whether it be the GM, the head coaching, whatever. I mean, they've got issue after issue after issue. And John Lynch came in, and they were very excited about him. They brought in Garoppolo, more excitement, and then they got hit by the injury bug. And the injury bug has been hitting hard a lot of their star players who they expect to be the building foundation of their offense or even their defense. Jimmy Ward, their safety, who was supposed to be a huge player for them, he's already injured again this offseason, but he should be back for our game. He ended up injured his collarbone. Jeremy Garoppolo's coming back from an injury that he suffered against us last year. And normally with those types of injuries, the quarterbacks come back and they're very timid in how they play. You look at Wentz when he came back, he wasn't the Wentz that we had seen prior to the injury. It takes them a while. And so I think whatever we do see of Garoppolo in this game, we're going to see a very timid passer, especially back in the pocket with the way that we're going to be rushing him.
And it wouldn't surprise me a bit because we're going to bring a lot of pressure to Garoppolo, especially with a dismal offensive line and really a dismal set of skill players on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. They're really in, I don't know what you would call it, a soft rebuild, a hard rebuild. I'm not really sure where the 49ers are, but as far as the Kansas City Chiefs versus the 49ers, I don't see us having any problems, even in the preseason. Just like last week, our last episode and the one before, like Brent and Ryan said, if we lose it, it's literally because, we just gave up in the second half because, we have our second and third string on the field. But 49ers, formidable opponent, not at all. We can definitely take it to these guys day in and day out. It's basically like playing a practice squad for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm really excited to watch in this game, more so than anything else, is their wide receivers against our secondary. They've got a lot of really fast wide receivers on this team.
Yes.
And with all of our new additions in the secondary, I want to see if we can shut them down. Can our second string shut down their second string? Can our third string shut down their third string? And can they keep up with them? And if we can do that, I feel really good about our secondary. If their wide receivers can get loose on us and we can't cover them because of the speed, I'm not going to necessarily say, uh-oh, here we go again, but I'll have some concerns.
But just remember we're going to have a base, as base of a defense as you possibly could out there against a preseason 49ers team.
Yeah, no, we're definitely be running a very vanilla offense and defense. In the past, some people have gotten really upset because of the play calling and this and that in the preseason. You have to understand, it's the preseason. Winning these games don't matter. It's a matter of getting our depth players, our second, third string guys, as playing experience. Can we see what potential they have? Or do they have a spot on the roster? Have they earned that? And then finally in the fourth game is where you really start to get your starters into playing shape. But this game is really where we're going to see very little of Mahomes and the starter, and we're going to see a lot more of the second, third practice squad guys and seeing what do we have on this team.
Yeah, I guess this is a really critical point and seeing where our depth is at. And yes, the third and fourth games of the preseason, we're really honing in on those backup guys in the depth because essentially, we have our depth chart as far as starters locked in at that point, so we really need to hone in on depth. So I like where you went with that. Look, this has been an informative broadcast. We've touched base on a lot of things, and that was the season preview with the 49ers. Obviously, in Chiefs Kingdom, we look at every opponent right now as somebody that we as a potential loss and a win in our category, and I love being able to have that confidence in Chiefs Kingdom. Kris, it's been a pleasure having you on the show tonight. We're going to have to cut the show a little short. It's always a pleasure talking football with you.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. You have a wonderful night. Kansas City, you have a wonderful night as well. It is Thursday. We are knee-deep into the work week, and we are almost done. One more night, get it over with. We'll see what happens with news coming up this week, and hopefully we can clear some things up in the Tyreek Hill controversy and really solidify our wide receiver group. So this is the Richard Smith Show, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs from the Kansas City Sports Update Studio, brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Check us out on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Player FM, YouTube, and all third-party applications. Check us out on all social media platforms. And if you cannot find us there, just search or Google the Kansas City Chiefs and Richard Smith Show, and I promise you will find us there. Have a great night, Kansas City.